Thank you very much, councillors, officers, members of the public. Do apologise for the glitch. Obviously, thank Sarah, our clerk, and Helen Davis at Democratic Services for getting to grips with the problem and getting us back online and getting the meeting published. So what I intend to do is to start the meeting completely afresh because we've had too many adjournments in between me starting the meeting off. If people don't answer the roll call, I will come back to them because I understand that some people may wish to have just nipped for a comfort break. So I will start off with, again, good morning, councillors, officers and members of the public. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Strategic Planning Board. I am Councillor Hunter and I am your chairman for today's meeting. I will begin by explaining some ground rules for those who are taking part in the meeting to follow. Please, I am sorry about this, just 1 second. That's my phone and I apologise. I will begin by setting some ground rules for the meeting to follow. Please, can you keep your camera and microphone switched off unless I invite you to speak? This is to ensure that only one voice can be heard at a time, talking without interruption. This also helps to avoid feedback and background noise, and it helps to save bandwidth. For members of the board wishing to speak during a debate, please raise a procedural point. Please indicate your desire to do so by using the chat facility, which can be accessed via the information bar near the centre of your display. Present at today's meeting are members of the Strategic Planning Board. I intend to call their name one by one and ask them to switch on their camera, microphone, to introduce themselves and confirm that they can hear the proceedings. I will start with Councillor Anthony Critchley.
I can see and hear, Chair.
I can't. Did you switch your camera on, or are you on phone, Councillor Critchley?
I can see and hear, Chair. I don't know if you can see me or hear me.
I can see you now. There you are, you big, handsome, strapping lad you are. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Councillor Dean.
Yeah, morning, Chairman. I think I'm technically 100% now.
Yes, we can see and hear you there, Councillor Dean. Thank you very much. Councillor Steve Edgar.
Yes, thank you. I can both see and hear.
And we can see and hear you too, Councillor Edgar. Councillor Ashley Farrell.
Good morning, Chair. I can see and hear you. Can you see and hear me?
I can. Good morning to you, and we can see and hear you fine, Councillor Farrell. Councillor Stuart Gardner.
Yeah, I can see and hear, and I've got chair envy with Councillor Ashley Farrell, I'm afraid.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, we all have that in a few meetings. Thank you, Councillor Gardner. We can see and hear you too. So, Councillor Steve Ogburn.
Yes, Councillor Steve Hogburn here. Can you hear and see me? I can hear and see you.
We can hear and see you, Councillor Ogburn, and a very fine hat you have on your head too.
It's getting cold in my padded cell.
And we all need one of them. Councillor David Jeffrey.
Yes, Chair. See and hear you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. We can see and hear you. Councillor Rob Morton.
Yeah, I can see and hear you.
Thank you, Councillor Morton. We can see and hear you fine too. Thank you. Councillor Patrick Redstone.
Hi, Chair. I can certainly see and hear you. It's a pleasure to do so.
Thank you very much. That's really nice. That is. Thank you very much, Councillor Redstone. We can see and hear you perfectly as well. Councillor Jackie Wetherill.
I can see and hear you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Yes, we can see and hear you perfectly. Thank you, Councillor Wetherill. Councillor Phil Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I can see and hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. We can see and hear you too. Thank you very much. Now, also present at this meeting are the following officers who are here to advise the board regarding items on the agenda. They are Sarah Baxter, Democratic Services Officer, Adrian Crowther, Major Applications Team Leader, Nikki Folan, Planning Solicitor, Paul Herdus, Highways Officer, David Malcolm, Head of Planning, Paul Wakefield, Planning Team Leader. Welcome everybody to the meeting. Now I will explain how the board will operate. The planning officer will introduce the item, show slides, photos and plans regarding the site. I will then invite any registered members of the public to speak, address the committee and to ask them to switch on their camera and microphone, state their name and the name of the group that they are representing. I will inform them how much time they have to speak and that they must finish within this time or their microphone may be muted to enable the meeting to move along. If anything the public speaker has said was unclear, I may allow members to ask questions of clarification. Once they have spoken, the public speakers will turn their camera and microphone and listen to the rest off and listen to the rest of the debate and the decision. The planning officer will respond to any issues raised by the public speaker, and then the members will be able to ask the planning officer questions before moving to debate the item. I remind members to indicate in the chat function if they wish to speak during the debate. When the debate moves to a close, I will check whether the officers have any final advice to give and that the terms of the give the terms of the resolution, which will have been moved and seconded, are clear to all. I will then invite each member of the board in alphabetical order to turn on their camera and microphone to confirm their support for the resolution or otherwise, by stating for, against, or not voting. The result of the vote will be reported to the meeting. Members of the board can only participate in and vote on the item if they can hear and be heard throughout the debate. If a member loses their connection and is unable to alert us to the fact, the meeting may be able to be adjourned for a short period to allow them to reconnect. If they are unable to reconnect within a short time, the meeting will continue without them and they will be unable to participate in the vote on the application. If the live stream of the meeting fails, the meeting will be adjourned for a reasonable length of time to try and restore connection. If it is not possible to do that in the meeting will be postponed and a new date set. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and streamed live to the public. We will now move to agenda item number 1, which is apologies for absence.
Yes, Chairman, apologies from Councillor Groves and his substitute is Councillor Dean.
Thank you very much. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interests from board members? Please can members indicate in the chat facility and then I will ask them to verbally give their declaration. So, Councillor Hogben.
Right. First of all, in the interests of openness and in respect of the application 18/2996M, I need to declare that I'm a non-executive director of ANSA and they were a consultee on this application, but I've not discussed the matter, nor have I made any comments on it. I also need to declare, and I think everybody will have the same, that I've received an email in relation to item 6. That's application 20/0113M. I'm pretty sure that's one that will apply to the whole of the committee. Thank you. I've read the email. Well, I've read the cover note at any rate, but that's all. And I think we've all received that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hogben. Councillor Edgar.
Thank you, Chair. In the interest of openness and transparency, I am Chairman of the Public Rights of Way Committee, who were consultees on all 3 applications before us today. I haven't discussed any matters with them regarding these. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edgar. Councillor Dean.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I've got quite a few. First of all, as regards application 18/2996M and indeed application 20/4682M, I am known to Tatton Estates and the Chief Executive, but I've not discussed either item with him. And most importantly, application 20/0113M, I'm a member of the Northern Planning Committee, which has already discussed this, and I've already voted on it. So for that item, which is our second substantive item today, I will absent myself from the meeting and come back for item 7 later on.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Stuart Gardner.
Thank you, Chair. I too have a number of interests to declare. In regards to item 6, application 20/0113M, I too have received the email from Ms Davidson and read Mrs Freeman's letter. I also have to declare that I am a former employee of Emery Planning, and I know Mrs Freeman very well. She was my immediate superior when I worked for that company. I have not had communications with her for several months and have certainly not discussed the content of this application. With regards to items 5 and item 7, I too am well known to the CEO of Tatton Estates and regularly meet him, but with regard to the item 7, I've had no discussions with him whatsoever. However, in the interest of openness, I should declare that before Christmas, Mr Brooks contacted me by telephone to discuss application 18/2996M. I told him that I was not in a position to discuss this, but he then went on to request that I ask that communications between officers and his agent be reconsumed because there appeared to be a blockage, and I did agree to this, and I sent an email to Mr Malcolm requesting that communications be resumed. I did not have any communication to discuss the benefits or any element of the application before us today. Indeed, I have gone out of my way to ensure that I am unfettered in this application. I was, at the time the application was submitted in its revised form, the chair of the Knutsford Town Council Planning Committee. I determined that it was inappropriate for me to attend when this item was discussed, and so arranged that a meeting where only this item was discussed took place, where my deputy chaired the meeting. I did not attend, neither did I attend the pre-meeting arranged by the clerk of the council with the applicant's agent. So until I receive the papers that we are considering today, my knowledge of the current format of this application was nil, albeit I had been involved historically when the earlier version of the application first came before us, but it is so different to what we have before us now. I do not believe that my position is in any way fettered, though if Mrs Foden believes otherwise, perhaps she could advise me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gardner. I too would like to declare an interest, which is the same as Councillor Hogben's, regarding the answer, non-executive directorship. I would also like to say I've received emails as chair of strategic planning on a couple of these applications. I have not read the emails, and I never read the emails that are sent to me now, so that I do not fetter myself, as Councillor Stuart Gardner would say. Right. Sorry,
Chairman, can I just check which applications you've received emails on?
I've received them on the 18/2996M and 20/0113M. Thank you very much. Oh, hang on, what's going on there? Oh, that's it, right. Councillor Ashley Farrell.
Can't hear him.
Councillor Farrell.
Yes, Chair. Just again on the email from in regards to 20/0113M. I think we all received the email in regards to that. Actually, we can see from the email receipt that we were all included on that. So I suggest we just do a blanket declaration on that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Farrell. Yeah, we will be doing a blanket declaration on that one. Thank you very much. Right.
Sorry, Chairman, just to point out that Councillor Dean, who's a substitute, hasn't had those emails, so I'll note that.
Thank you very much. Right, item 3 is the minutes of the previous virtual meeting, which was held on the 9th of December 2020. Can I ask someone to propose that these are a correct record of the meeting?
Sorry, Chair, just a slight, very slight minor point on them is my name in the present section on the minutes is correct, but my name spelling of my name in the subsequent declarations of interest is incorrect. So just
we will put that right, no problem. So we have a proposer in Councillor Gardner and a seconder in Councillor Edgar. Can I ask you to do that verbally, please, Councillor Gardner?
With the typographical amendments, I'm happy to propose the minutes as a correct record.
Thank you very much.
And happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much. I will now invite each member of the committee to confirm their support or otherwise by stating for, against, or not voting. So when members please do so, will you turn on your camera and microphone and identify yourselves? I'll go through that now. So Councillor Anthony Critchley.
I'll be abstaining, Chair. I wasn't at a meeting.
Okay, no problem. So not voting. Thank you very much, Councillor Critchley. Councillor Dean.
Not voting, Chair.
No problem. Councillor Steve Edgar.
For.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edgar. Councillor Ashley Farrell.
I will abstain, Chair, as I left the meeting for one of the agenda items.
Okay. Councillor Gardner.
For.
Councillor Hogben.
For.
Councillor Jeffrey.
For.
Councillor Morton.
Not voting.
Thank you. Councillor Redstone.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Wetherill.
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
And I'm for also. So that's carried. Item 4, we now go to... Pardon? Feedback. Just 1 second, we're getting a little bit of feedback. Is anybody else getting an echo? No, right, okay, we'll crack on. So item 4, public speaking time. This sets out the public speaking rules for the committee. We will now move to our first application, item 5, 18/2996M, reserved matters application pursuant to outline planning consent 13/2935M for siting, design, appearance and landscaping details for residential development C3 use class. Land north of Parkgate Industrial Estate, Knutsford, for Tatton Estates. I would like to ask Paul Wakefield to present this item to the board. Mr. Wakefield.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just share my screen. Just bear with me one moment. Right. So hopefully we can see the location plan now, Chairman.
Yes, everything's there.
Great. So this application, as is set out in the report, was deferred from a previous SBB meeting back in November 2018. Since the submission of, since the publication of the report, there have been some revised details that have been received, which I'll talk through, excuse me, as part of the presentation, just to update with members where we're up to with things. Overall, though, just one key point to note is the report was written on the basis of it being a proposal for 234 dwellings. The revised details that we've received now make that to 236 because 4 one-bedroom properties have been provided. And that's just led to that sort of slight increase in numbers there. So it's 236 dwellings that we're now looking at. So this is the application site. It's at the end of Parkgate Lane in Knutsford. It borders Tatton Park to the north of the site. This whole area to the north is Tatton Park. This is Parkgate Farm, which is the nearest, I suppose, if you like, residential property. There is a single dwelling there, together with some agricultural buildings. We've got sewage works to the eastern side of the site, together with Birkin Brook. Then Parkgate Industrial Estate sits to the south, and this open area here also forms part of the allocation within the local plan strategy for LPS 37 for additional employment units, and there are currently additional employment units currently being constructed within that area as well. Just to show that, excuse me, it's an aerial image. So Parkgate Lane, which the site is accessed from, leads from Mobley Road, where a new roundabout has recently been constructed, and access is along Parkgate Lane over the railroad bridge and straight into the site at the end there, just before you get to Parkgate Farm. But you can see what's the Shore Heath Plantation, the woodland there within Tatton Park, which is a Grade 2 star registered park and garden. And as you can see, it's quite surrounded by open countryside, generally speaking, with the majority of the built form to the south in the form of the industrial estate. And you can just, on the right hand side of the image there, you can probably just see the edge of Mobley Village as well, with Knutsford over on the left hand side, just where we've got this orange balloon here. A few photographs of the application site. So this is Parkgate Lane on the left hand side, where access to the site will be gained from. Again, you can see Parkgate Farm in the background, and then Tatton Park and the woodland planting beyond. And then the right hand picture just shows where the public footpath, excuse me, footpath number 11 currently accesses the site, and it crosses the site currently in a diagonal manner from west to east over towards Mobley. Then again, looking within the site, it's a relatively flat site, mainly laid to grass. So looking, this is just by the entrance with the industrial estate behind, looking towards Town Park, quite a nice view. And then again, just looking back towards Parkgate Lane. So this was the hedgerow that we saw in the first image. that currently runs along Parkgate Lane and serves Parkgate Farm, which would just be off the page there on the right hand side. And so this is where the access comes in, just on this left hand side here. And again, looking the other way, we have the industrial estate. Industrial buildings that run along the length of the southern boundary of the application site. And then Parkgate Farm, which is to the north, which is to the northwest of the site. You can just see the existing dwelling on the site. There's a chimney just about here, so that's where the nearest dwelling is. And then the far eastern side of the site, which lies within the green belt at the far eastern end, and where the public right-of-way travels towards, and as it leaves the site, it heads towards Mobley over on that eastern end. And then finally, this is looking back towards the, you can just see the end of the existing employment buildings there. And then this area on the left-hand side, where the vegetation is the other allocation to LPS 37, where the employment buildings are currently being constructed as well. So this is a plan that was approved as part of the outline permission. Just to briefly run through this, what it shows. As you can see, we've got the industrial estate to the south, and as part of that, a buffer zone was provided and ensured as part of the outline permission, which needs to be respected as part of the reserve matters. So we've got a 30-metre buffer on the light blue stretch here, and then a 20-metre buffer on the right hand side. And then we've got in the sort of peachy colour and then a greeny colour, that's the developable area of the site, and the two colours represent different heights that a building that are allowed as part of the reserve matters. So within the green, they can be up to 12 metres, and I think within the peach, it's up to 9 metres, two-storey buildings in the peach area, and in the green, it's up to 3-storey buildings. And then the white areas, but within the application site boundary, so within the site edge red, are areas that still lie within the green belt. But the key point to note is that the developable area is that which is coloured, as we can see on this map. So, as part of the revised details that have been submitted, we have got a revised landscape master plan. So I'm going to go through the sort of points that were outstanding within the report in the order in which they were raised. So primarily, to start off with, there were just a couple of issues about the green belt in terms of the amount of fencing that was proposed around the open space area at the front of the site here, and then just in terms of the extent of fencing. So all this was enclosed by fencing. There's fencing here, here, all the way along. And so what's happened is they've now the fencing's been removed from the front parts of the site and replaced with landscaping, and similarly the fencing is retained around this what's an eco zone, ecological mitigation area, for obvious reasons. But then as we get further round, the fencing has been reduced to mainly to accommodate a single sort of pocket park, if you like, an open space facility around this veteran tree that sits here. But then around the suds ponds, there's been additional landscaping proposed instead of sort of physical structures, so it will blend better into the landscape as well. Then the only other issue was this point about this eastern spur to the cycleway, which leads, there is a cycleway that sort of leads round the site and into the open space, but it does spur off to the far east side, but it doesn't actually lead anywhere, so there was a request for it to be removed. Although the applicants have explained that this is as a result of quite long discussions with the town council and community groups, and so they are quite keen to retain it, and so it is still shown as being retained here. Then in terms of affordable housing, as I said, we have now got 1-bedroom properties provided, 4 of them. Just in this location here, they replace, I think it's a pair of semi-detached properties, so they will take the form of cottage style apartments, which have the appearance of semi-detached properties, but they will have a first and second floor flat in each of the dwellings. So that's why the numbers of dwellings has increased by 2. This affordable plan shows the general spread of the affordable housing across the site. The blue being the shared ownership properties and the pink being the affordable rented properties. So as you can see, it's quite well spread out across and pepper potted across the site. And so so the provision of those 1-bedroom units does address the single red light that was given in the BFL Building for Life 12 assessment in the design section of the report, lifting it up to an amber in terms of meeting local housing requirements. Then moving on to open space, there was a query in the report about the extent of open space that was provided within the developable area. And I think I'd just draw members' attention to these, this area here, number 1, which is, I'm not sure how clear it is on the screen, but it's sort of a blue hatching, and similarly over number 4 here at the entrance. These 2 quite substantial areas are within the developable area. Exceed over 8,000 square metres of public open space. So it's well provided for in terms of the quantum of open space. We are just waiting. We have had some details, but they will still be considered by answer at the moment. But we could potentially deal with specific open space, play space details by condition, should that be necessary. And then there are also sort of smaller pocket parks that have been referred to, spread across the development. Just sort of smaller areas of open space that can be used as well. And as I touched on before, there is this one area here which is trying to create a key feature of the veteran tree that's been identified and retained within the application site. Then one final point on open space is just to confirm that the sports pitch will be built to Sport England standards as is required by the Section 106 agreement, and the applicants have said they're more than happy to accept a condition relating to this, should we feel it necessary. Excuse me. In terms of living conditions, the applicant has said that all properties do now appear to meet the council separation standards. Although I must admit, some of the measurements I've taken, there do still appear to be some distances that do fall below the standards, but it is accepted that the design guide states that separation distances should be seen as a guide rather than a hard and fast rule. And it's also worth noting as well that permitted development rights were removed from the development as part of the outline permission. So any future development, at the back of any of these properties would be subject to permission, and the impact on properties can be assessed at that appropriate time as well. So on that basis, it's considered that the distances are generally okay. Turning to noise, there was this issue about we have this noise mitigation area, excuse me, which is a 100-metre noise buffer from the industrial estate, where one of the conditions requires no private amenity space to be provided within this buffer zone, which is shown by this semicircle on this plan. Now, private amenity space arguably is everything that's not public, but as you can see from this plan, it's the front gardens of one or possibly 2 properties that are affected. And so whilst it is only a slight tweaking that's required, I think it would, unfortunately, such a tweak would have potential implications for the wider layout as well. So the applicants have struggled to accommodate this, and I think they're just keen to seek members' views on whether they would be happy for those front gardens to be within that noise mitigation area, given that they have rear gardens that are available for use and outside of that noise mitigation area in accordance with that condition. So that's just something that members might want to just give some consideration to.
Can I just hold you there?
Yeah.
Mr. Wakefield, we just have a slight technical problem.
We've lost sound through the live broadcast. I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to adjourn the meeting until we sort it, Paul. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'm going to adjourn the meeting and find out what's happening. Test.
There you go.
Just testing to see if what I'm saying is being broadcast. My colleague's just listening, so just ignore me whilst I do a test. Can you hear anything, Katie? Nothing. Right. Hiya. We've got to abandon ship. What's wrong with your sound?
Hello, members of the public, officers and councillors. We are going to have to take a forced adjournment. We will adjourn. We'll take an early dinner. We will come back at 12:15, where we hope to have the issue sorted. So if you could just all give yourself a comfort break, grab something to eat, and be back at 12:15. Thank you very much. Right.
Through you, Chairman, it's Sarah Democratic Services. Just to confirm, we have to be broadcasting the meeting out live to be legal. At the moment, there's no sound being broadcast, so the meeting is not legal, and therefore, until we sort that issue out, we cannot carry on with the meeting. Even though it's being recorded, it's not being recorded live. The sound isn't being recorded live at the moment to the public that are watching on the live event, and that's what we need to do to make it legal. Thank you. test again.
Okay.
Hi, Sarah, Democratic Services. Just trying to do another test to see if my colleagues can hear me speaking on the live event. So just ignore what I'm saying. It's just a test. Katie, if you can hear what I'm saying, can you just let me know on the WhatsApp? Thank you. And I'll keep talking just to see if you can hear me. All right, I am talking now. So if you can hear me, let me know. That'd be great. If you can hear me. You want me to get Just testing again, members. Sorry, a colleague just checking that I can hear that they can hear me okay. So I'm just going to be talking to check that they can hear me. I think we might have sorted out the sound issues, so hopefully we'll be able to start at 12:15. I'm just doing a test. My colleague's going to let me know if she can hear. So Katie, if you can just let me know whether or not you can hear me on the text, that'd be great. And hopefully we'll be able to be up and running at 12:15. And apologies for the IT issues that we've had today. It's been a good few months since we've had any issues, so I can only apologise to everybody that we've had such a delay. It's working, so we'll be up and running at 12:15. Chairman, members, officers, and members of the public, 12:15.
Sarah, if you can hear me, when I click on the link from Internet Explorer, it still is showing a recording for the first 2.5 minutes and not what I can see as a delegate.
I'm off.
Thank you. I'll check that out. So what can you? So are you on the live event link?
Yes, if I click from the agenda onto the link,
Yeah.
it says loading live event, and then there's a play button, and then it goes to the PowerPoint presentation with the face of the councillors and the mouse moving. It is a recording of the first 2 minutes 36 that were live, and it's not currently live.
Yes, that link is that on the PDF agenda pack are you talking about, or the link on the actual homepage?
On the link of the Strategic Planning Board agenda page.
Yeah, that link isn't the right one. It's the one on the homepage. I'll take that off because that link isn't correct. It's the one on the main page that is the one that you need to use for the live event.
Okay. Where is the homepage?
If you go out of the PDF document for the agenda and pull up
Got you.
all the meetings and the dates, if you click on the link for the 15th of January meeting, it brings up the PDF documents, but there's a link saying click here to watch the live meeting, and it's got a telephone number. That's the link.
Okay, I've clicked into the agenda front page, and,
Yeah,
and that still does the same thing.
Yeah, that's the wrong one. So you don't want to click onto the agenda front sheet at all. It's on the main homepage.
Okay, thank you.
Meetings. If you go onto Council and Democracy webpage, and it brings up all the meetings listed alphabetically. If you go into Strategic Planning Board on the 15th of January, the link underneath the actual PDF, just click here. And it should have it should have an ID number. I'll put the link in the chat if it helps you.
Henry, it's Matt from Bellway. I've just sent you the link across by email.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'm all right because I'm in, as you can hear, but I'm just concerned that other people will be making the same problem I had to begin with.
The problem is I'm not sure I can unpublish the agenda whilst we're going live. You see, if that would then affect it would affect the broadcast. So I didn't. But I had said to a colleague the problem is if anyone did go in the agenda pack, but the actual main link is on the front page with the ID as 991 ended in 991. But I'm going to see if I can unpublish the agenda and just take that link off the pack so nobody clicks on that pack.
Sarah?
Sarah's just on the phone. Just give her a second.
Thanks.
Okay.
I'm off mute.
I'm not there. Through you, Chairman, just doing a test to make sure that that the sound is being broadcast out live and that we're all ready to go in a couple of minutes. So I'm just waiting for my colleague to confirm, and he has done, so the sound is working fine. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, so we're back in 3 minutes to resume the meeting. Thank you for your patience. Thank you very much. Right, we'll kick off again. Obviously, we have to do a few things because of the adjournment. First of all, thank you for your patience. Obviously, the computer gods are not being very good with us today, but we hope that we've solved the problem and we can crack on. So first of all, I need to do a roll call, and I'll start the roll call off with Councillor Critchley.
Still here, still looking good, Chair.
Oh, thank you very much, Councillor Critchley. Councillor Dean.
Yep, still here, still not looking so good, Chair.
Yeah, you and me both. Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Edgar.
Yes, I'm here, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edgar. Councillor Farrell.
Yes, I'm here still, Chair.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Councillor Gardner. I'll come back to Councillor Gardner in a minute. Councillor Hogben.
I'm still here, Chairman, and I see you are.
Thank you very much. That's great.
Mr. Chairman, I am here now. I was having difficulty with the buttons on the computer, but it's working okay now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gardner. Appreciate that. Councillor Jeffrey.
Yes, Chair, I'm still here.
Councillor Morton.
Yes, Chair, still here, all house work now complete.
Thank you very much. Councillor Redstone.
Yes, Chair, I'm here.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wetherill. Councillor Williams.
Yes, I'm here, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Williams. And we'll just try Councillor Wetherill again. Councillor Wetherill, can you hear us?
I can hear and see you. Can you hear and see me?
I can now, yes, you've just come up. Thank you very much, Councillor Wetherill. Thank you. Right, so we're all there and present. We were on item number 5, which was the application 18/2996M. I will ask the officer, Mr. Wakefield, if he could give us a quick recap and then carry on from the slide that we unfortunately finished on. So, Councillor Wakefield, Paul, can you hear us?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'll just share my screen again.
Fantastic.
He says.
Yeah, landscape master plan. Yeah, that's where.
Yeah.
Right. So if you could do us just a quick recap.
Yes, certainly, Chairman. So, so just to recap, just in terms of the issues that were outstanding from the report, in terms of green belt, we have lost the fences as requested within the report. In terms of housing, we've secured 4 one-bed affordable properties. Adequate open space is now provided, has been identified within the site, more than adequate, should I say, details of which could be conditioned, including the sports pitch. The separation distances between dwellings, whilst there may still be some that still fall fairly short, it's only a minor breach, and for the reasons that I explained, it is considered to be okay now. The noise mitigation area, as we said, we do have a couple of properties that do sort of skirt the boundary of that noise mitigation area. I think that was pretty much where we got up to. In terms of highways, there was just 3 plots that were needed to be clarified in terms of their parking provision, which were numbers 38, 210 and 68. And the revised layout plan now clarifies 2 parking spaces for each plot. So that addresses that point. Moving on to trees, we did have, as is set out in the report, we did have an objection from, or we had comments from, excuse me, the Woodland Trust that raised a query as to whether tree T2, which is this one here, had the characteristics of being a veteran tree as T1 did, which is over here. That's been checked out on site by our forestry officer, and he is satisfied that it does not have all the veteran characteristics, so he's not a veteran tree, and so no further work is required with regard to that. In more general forestry terms, he's happy, doesn't raise any objections, but just recommends a couple of conditions that I'll come on to later. In landscape terms, as I noted at the start, we do have this landscape buffer along the southern boundary of the site, and there was some concern where one of the, particularly plot 122, was encroaching into that buffer zone. So that plot has been pushed back outside of the 30-metre buffer zone, so that achieves that. And as I touched on before, the fencing and the knee rails that were around the suds ponds have been replaced by more sympathetic planting, just to help it better integrate into its environment. One other point just to note, we have received comments from the Conservation Officer who has raised some concern about the proposals in terms of the local distinctiveness and the impact on the setting of the registered park and garden, and one thing he did suggest was additional parkland type planting to the north of the housing, so within this area here. which reflects the comments from the Garden Trust as well. So I think we picked that up in the original report and said there is potential for additional planting that could be accommodated and could be secured by condition. So that would be included within the landscape condition as currently proposed. Then just a couple of final matters. This is the Tatton house type, which is a 2.5-storey house type, although it's in the zone within the outline parameters plan where 3-storey properties are acceptable up to 12 metres in height. Bizarrely, the outline planning permission restricts the height of 2.5-storey properties such as this to 9 metres. So I'm just raising it. There hasn't been any changes made to the plans, but again, it's just something that members might wish to be aware of. You know, as I say, they could put a 3-storey, a true 3-storey property onto the plots where the Tatton house type, which are currently occupied by the Tatton house type, and will be much taller. So there is arguably a degree of conflict with the outline, but it doesn't really make any difference, I think, is probably the message I would give. And then finally, excuse me, the last sort of outstanding issue was that related to flood risk. And the applicants proposed a condition on the reserve matters approval to finalise finished floor levels and drainage details together, which can be dealt with by condition, and we can add an additional condition to the reserve matters as well to cover that. So just in terms of additional conditions that I would recommend, it would be tree protection and a management plan for the veteran tree, which is a T1. The development needs to be carried out in accordance with the arboricultural impact assessment method statement and tree protection plan. A restriction on any additional fences being erected. Open space, the play area and trim trail layout details to be submitted. Details of the sports pitch to be submitted. Final finished floor levels to be agreed and aligned with the drainage details. And also, we don't currently have the plans and elevations of the one bred properties. I think it was we just ran out of time. So I would recommend a condition to require those to be submitted as well. But with all that being said, it's recommended for approval, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much. Just 1 second. No, we'll take the speaker first. We'll keep the same. We will keep the same procedure that we always do. So, Councillor Redstone, I've got you down as for a question. So, but we will take that when we get to that section. So, can I now ask? We move to public speakers for this item, and I call upon Councillor Quentin Abel, the ward councillor, to address the board. Can you please switch on your camera and phone? You will have 5 minutes speaking time. When you're finished, can you please take off your phone and your camera? Councillor Abel, if you would like to address the board.
Good afternoon, board. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I am one of the Knutsford ward councillors. I'm also the council's environmental champion and climate change champion. We are in favour of this development. As the concerns for climate change, the need for us, as recent communications have come out in the news, indeed only yesterday, that we are continuing to have climate change as a major issue. So the opportunity to plant more trees, particularly at the boundary with Tatton Park, would seem a very sensible thing to do. My understanding is that Cheshire Wildlife Trust and that there is a concern with the biodiversity, and that the opportunity to increase the amount of biodiversity would also be much appreciated. And I think there are also some gentle concerns about the boundary to the north with Tatton Park. and that might well be looked at. My recommendation would therefore be that we are looking at that and the opportunity, and apologies, because it is, so we're broadly in favour of it all, but it's the ability to make sure we have extra trees and that biodiversity issues are kept in place. Thank you very much, Chair. Have I lost you?
No, it's me. I was on mute. I'm sorry, Councillor Abel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If any members wish to ask Councillor Abel any questions, can you please indicate in the chat? I do have Councillor Redstone. Do you wish to ask a question of Councillor Abel, Patrick?
Chair, I should have said that with the idea of dealing with any matters by condition would be felt to be the most appropriate way of dealing with them. And it's the issues raised by the National Trust, who are obviously the owners of Tatton Park and the Garden Trust. It's those concerns, ecological concerns, and the tree planting obviously is both ecological and climate change related.
I will ask the officers to come back on that, Councillor Abel, if you just give me a... Councillor Redstone, do you wish to ask a question?
No, Chair, thank you. I've reserved my questions for the officers.
Right, thank you very much. So is anybody else wishing to ask a question of Councillor Abel? No, thank you very much, Councillor Abel. I now call upon Mr. Sebastian Tebben, agent for the applicant, to address the board.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Excellent, thank you.
I can't see you though.
Oh.
There we go, can see you now, that's great. If you would like to address the board, please, Sebastian, you have 3 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, firstly. I'm Sebastian Tibbenham. I'm a qualified town planner and executive director of Pegasus Group. You'll have heard from your officers. We've been working very hard over the last year and weeks on this during these difficult times to get this development proposal to a position where your officers are able to support it. It's a long-standing development site. It was originally allocated as an employment development site in the Macclesfield local plan, and its use for housing was accepted in 2015 through the outline permission and again in 2017 as part of the Cheshire East local plan. And therefore it's a key allocated site for NUTS to deliver housing. In this instance, the applicant Tatton Estate have deep roots in Knutsford, and they provide a good number of the town's facilities and green spaces. They've shown a true commitment to working with the community, and helpfully your officers gone through those outstanding points, but working with the community, we have come up with a scheme that we feel addresses all of the points that have been previously raised in the committee report, and importantly issues that were raised by this committee back in 2018. Critically, we've secured a developer with a strong track record, Bellway Homes. We've renewed support from Knutsford Town Council, who considered the scheme at length, and undertaken probably the most extensive and highly productive consultation process with the local community that I've known to date in my career. Therefore, the plans now include homes that all have private rear gardens, an abundance of smaller homes with 72% between the 1 and 3 bed scale, more affordable housing, now up to 71 homes, 4 bungalows and 49 other accessible homes, a good number of Tatton red elevations that you have seen on the Tatton house type to reflect the local vernacular, electric vehicle charging points for every home, solar panels for 34 of the affordable homes, rainwater collection for all gardens, a community orchard and thousands of new trees planted on top of those additional that are now being requested. We have truly abundant and beautiful open space on this scheme and public art that will be paying tribute to Tatton Park and much, much more. I must stress that these items go above and beyond the requirements of the outline permission and the council's existing planning policies. And with that, we therefore hope that you can support the proposals. There are a number of points that your officers have made, and I'm happy to accept questions on those, particularly in relation to the Tatton house type and the issue with the 100-metre buffer on noise. I note that Councillor Abel has also mentioned a couple of points, and also happy to answer questions on those points too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. That was bang on 3 minutes, believe it or not. So that was well done, well rehearsed. Do we have any questions for? Yeah, Councillor Dean.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sebastian. The comments from the flood, I think it's from the Environment Agency actually, were to be sorted out, and according to our planning officer, they're now going to condition that they're requiring an agreement on finished floor levels and a drainage plan. My question is not about the drainage plan. Finished floor levels, the recommendation at some stage has been 600 millimetres above ground across the site. To me, if I was a developer, that would make a huge difference to the cost of building these houses. What is your views on that? Are you happy if that is the final result of the agreement between yourself and the planners, that they must be 600 millimetres above the ground level? Will that be economically feasible?
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Just in response of that, we have provided finished floor levels as part of the plans that we submitted, and the way we've currently modelled it is we have topographical data that highlights where flood zone 2 sits on the site, and that goes above and beyond the LiDAR data that the Environment Agency work on. So we've got the best and most accurate information available at this moment in time, and we have plotted all of the house types that need to be 600 millimetres above that level. It only affects the very back end of the site, so it's, just to be clear, it's not across the site. It's only a very small proportion at the very far end. Now, what the Environment Agency is saying is that there needs to be a consideration of climate change on the impacts of those levels, and that is something that we're seeking to get from the Environment Agency, but they don't have the detailed modelling for that area yet. So once we've done the final bit, it will really only affect that very back part of the site, which will come on a lot later down the development. It's something clearly we would like to resolve before we put spades in the ground, but we don't feel that it needs to be resolved today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay, Councillor Dean, that's fantastic. Councillor Jeffrey.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so I was wondering whether you could comment on the very small number of small properties, small dwellings on this development. I acknowledge that we've now got the 4 one-beds, but that's a tiny number, given that the demand is showing that we need a lot of small properties. And I note that you said in your presentation that 71% are 2 to 3 bedrooms, which I thought was a very clever way of doing it. But likewise, if you flip it the other way and group the 3 and 4 beds together instead of the 2 and 3, you've got 80%. So 80% of the properties are 3 and 4 beds. Just wondering if you could comment on that and whether we could increase that number of small dwellings. Thanks.
I mean, obviously, it's for members to debate in the round. In that, we did, when the initial request came in, we did explore the layout in detail in terms of where we could insert these 1-bedroom properties. This is the only location, unfortunately. There might be one other, but I don't think we'd achieve the separation distances that Paul mentioned previously. We started on this basis that we had a refusal back in 2018 on the basis that there were too many 4 and 5 bedroom homes, and there was a development proposal there that included a lot of apartments as well, so smaller properties, but it was of a scale that this strategic planning board wouldn't accept. We had discussions with the local community, and the position really was that they wanted to see starter homes, 2-3 beds, those types of properties that could have their own private rear garden space as well. And that's where the focus has been. But I suppose critically, It's also the focus that our preferred developer, Bellway, wants to go in. As my client, Tatton Estate, we've pushed them to provide some one-bed properties, and this is what they've accepted to do. We think it's acceptable. We don't have an outline, a condition on the outline saying that a specific number has to be provided, and there aren't technically policies within the Cheshire East local plan to stipulate how much needs to be provided either. But I think we're at the limit as to what we can provide now, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I suppose just to clarify, we have through the community also provided for bungalows as well and adaptable homes as well. So in terms of the grand scheme of things, in terms of the amount of affordables that we're providing, adaptable homes, bungalows, and then one beds, there's quite a considerable number of properties in the main that kind of fall outside what Bellway Homes would, I suppose, ideally like to deliver, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. Councillor Jeffrey, do you have a comeback on that?
No, but it's one for debate, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Tibbingham. Obviously, a lot of work's gone into this. That's very clear. Just a quick question on the noise issue, maybe outside the purview of the site, but I did wonder whether it's possible for there to be some kind of noise barrier or something erected along the periphery of the industrial area there, or perhaps within the site itself, just around the bottom of the gardens in question. I know it's a minor issue in the overall scheme of things, and I just wondered whether something like that could mitigate things without having to sort of jiggle around with the actual layout of the housing on the estate. Thank you.
Sebastian.
Yeah, good question, Councillor Williams. Thank you for that. Just so all members are aware, the detailed plans do include a 2-metre high acoustic fence along the southern boundary, and there's also a landscape buffer as well, which is raised with planting on there for screening purposes too. So the acoustic fence sits within that bund area. This particular noise issue comes from some silos on the industrial estate, and where we've got this offset. Now, just to be clear, the outline permission doesn't say that no homes can be built within that area, but certain noise parameters need to be met if you're proposing private amenity space within that area. Private amenity space isn't fully defined within the outline consent, and therefore Paul, I suppose, has rightly taken the robust approach to say, well, that could include front and rear gardens. I think, from my understanding, in the spirit of it, I think what the council were originally trying to ensure is that people had quite enough rear garden space to enjoy on a day-to-day basis. In this instance, it only affects plot 5, which sits right at the front of the site. It will be just the front part of the front garden only, and obviously there'll be a lot of passing by and traffic in that location anyway, given it is to the front of the site. My view is I don't think those residents will really be looking to use their front garden space as what we would, I suppose, commonly call private amenity space. So I hope that clarifies the position.
Councillor Williams, are you happy with that?
Yes, that's a very clear answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williams. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. The first relates to the issue regarding the Tatton house, the Tatton style properties. Clearly, there is a condition that requires 2.5-storey properties to be no more than 9.5 metres, and yet this exceeds it. But I understand that we might be talking semantics, given that if it were a 3-storey house, and to Joe Public, it is a 3-storey house. I know in architectural and planning terms it's described as a 2.5-storey house because it has accommodation in the roof space, but that is modern architecture facilitates almost full heights within roof spaces these days, and that's accommodated. So I'm just wondering whether or not you would prefer to keep the design you've got, or whether or not your clients are looking to modify this design for a full three-storey to fully comply with the regulations. Before you answer that, the second question relates to the additional planting that's required or being requested by Tatton Park. I understand there has been some negotiation about this. Given the current climate situation, would your clients not feel obliged to maximise the amount of planting that they can facilitate in this location?
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. I'll take your points in turn, if I may. The Tatton house type, I think you've used the word that I was looking to use as well, semantics, really. This Tatton house type has evolved from a typical Bellway house type called the Butcher, which is a genuine three-storey dwelling, which has a full three-storey gable, rear and front elevation. But obviously there's the Cheshire East Design Guide and there's the Knutsford Town Design Guide, and we're asked to go and look at the local vernacular and properties to come up with schemes that better reflect the local area. And there are an abundance of these type of high-pitched properties that have these dormer windows to the front. We've considered also colour and materials, and we've applied the Tatton red to this particular house type as well, and red Cheshire brick, and we feel it just better reflects the area. All of the properties of this type, the Tatton house type, are all located, if you recall, at the beginning of Paul's presentation, there was a central zone, I think the colour was green, within the developable area where three-storey properties can be sited. And on that plan, which the outline application refers to, development up to 12 metres can be built, up to 3 stories, and the Tatton house type, just to be clear, is 10.7 metres, but we've located them all within that central zone. Our view is that it could easily be described as a 3-storey property, given there are 3 levels within it. But because we've cited them all specifically within that central zone, we strongly feel that we satisfy the condition, and certainly the spirit of that condition. Unfortunately, I think it was just one of those badly wording conditions at the time. But members obviously can take a pragmatic view, and based on what I've said.
And the second part of Councillor Gardner's questions on the planting.
On the planting, I tried to count all the trees on these plans, and there are literally goes into the thousands, so I ran out of time. So we have got a lot of planting on the scheme already. We have provided responses to the Cheshire Garden Trust in the past. We have considered the boundary treatment at Tatton Park as well, so we've got a native holly hawthorn hedge all along that boundary with Tatton Park. There is scope to plant a few more trees, and our latest plans do actually show that. Given we've had to make some late changes to this scheme, we still do need to submit our detailed, well, I would call them our revised detailed planting plans, and therefore there would have to be a condition on that regardless. And yes, we're happy to provide some more in the northern area. I don't think it'll be significantly more because we've got a lot there already, to be fair. But
thank you very much. Councillor Gardner, do you have any other questions? Would you like to come back?
Sorry, I thought I'd already done. No, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Councillor Farrell. Councillor Farrell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Hello, Mr. Tippenham. Just some questions on the housing mix, really, about the one-bedroomed cottage flats, I think they are now. Can you just give us some detail about them? Because obviously it seems to be quite it's not in my my agenda pack or the updates, so I assume it's evidently a late change. Can you give some details about the houses that I assume they were housing? Sorry, I assume they were like what mentioned by the officer. They were, was it 2-bedroom detached, semi-detached houses that were, I assume, have just been converted into cottage flats. Is that correct? And if that is correct, obviously it's a very late change that I assume to meet the design guide, to rectify that in the design guide. Can you also confirm that's like, obviously you've done that at the last minute. Have you gone to the full extent of what you can do there in terms of conversions from an other 2-bedroom detached to maybe, or 2 3-bedroom detached to 1-bedroom cottage flats in the same way?
Yeah, I think just in terms of the appearance of them, so Paul mentioned that we hadn't got the elevation. That might need to be a condition. The elevation actually is with your officers. It was submitted midweek, but I understand it could well have got missed in everything that's been submitted. It does look exactly the same, really, as what a semi-detached house would be on the site. So in the location that we've proposed it includes some Tudor boarding on it and red brick, and I suppose for most people it would just appear as a semi-detached property within the street. But there are 2 side doors. All of those 4 apartments have their own garden space actually to the rear as well. There's probably not much more I can say in terms of the number. Obviously that question was raised before, so my last response to that remains really. If I'm able to share my screen, I might be able to show the elevation if that would give you comfort. But I think Paul has suggested that a condition could be attached on that. But equally, before the decision notice is issued, if Paul then does see the elevation, he's satisfied with it, he can just cite it as an approved plan.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Farrell, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just the main, I guess the main point of my question really was in regards to the conversion between the semi-detached houses into 1-bedroom cottage flats. Have you gone to the extent of what you could do there reasonably?
I see. Apologies. Right. Sorry, I get your point now. It's strictly speaking, it's not a conversion that we use. It is a bespoke build, but it appears as a semi-detached property. So these properties do actually have a bigger footprint than a standard semi-detached property. So that is why it's difficult for me to say that we can definitely provide more, because actually what we would have to do is swap out some house types that we've already got on the layout and replace them with these, but the dimensions aren't exactly the same and they are wider. And because of the garden makeup, it's technically it's not as easy as just pointing to 2 semi-detached properties on the plan and say we'll just turn those into apartments, unfortunately.
Thank you very much. Right, we'll now go to, if you can switch off now and go on mute, Sebastian, thank you very much. We are now going over to, do we have the officer wish to respond to any of the questions that went forward, particularly the ones from Councillor Abel, which were the conditions that they wishes to put in, Paul?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just a couple of points. Obviously, the boundary to the north has been quite a matter that's been commented on quite widely within the representations, including representations from the National Trust, the Gardens Trust, as we said, and our Conservation Officer. So it is this relationship with the registered park and garden to the north. Now, obviously, the key thing to remember is the permission in principle has already been agreed, which allows a development, a residential development with heights of up to 12 metres. So that is there, and that's already been allowed. So I guess it's just how any impact along that northern boundary is potentially mitigated. And I think things have certainly moved on over the past couple of years since we've had the application in terms of the treatment of that boundary. You know, with an evergreen holly hedge, for example, and additional tree planting as well within that. The gap between the developable area and the boundary to the park itself. But you know, just acknowledging the concerns that continue to be raised and Councillor Abel's comments, that, as we've said, it's worth investigating further whether additional planting can be provided. As Mr. Tibbingham suggested, it does look like there is scope to provide a bit more additional planting, and that will be, as I said in the introduction, that will be covered within the landscaping conditions that we're proposing. Similarly, in terms of any sort of ecological mitigation and the retention of those works carried out as part of the development, they are excuse me, they will be retained. moving into the future. There are sort of pockets of ecological mitigation areas around the greenbelt areas, particularly within the site, but surrounding the developable area. There's one in the northern area between the development and the Untitled Park, which will be fenced off and protected accordingly. And there will be management plans that ensure their maintenance and retention in perpetuity. So they will be retained in the interest of biodiversity. And then again, on climate change, I think this was touched on briefly, but it's worth noting again that 36 of the dwellings do have solar panels. Now, the principle for that, if it was a requirement of the permission, it would have been secured at the outline. There's no requirement for it to be provided, but it's been put forward, I think, again, following discussions with between the applicant and the local community groups and the town council. And I think it can be seen as a very positive aspect of the development in terms of contributions towards minimising climate change impacts. So yeah, so I think that's it for now, Chairman. Thank you. Nothing else to add.
Councillor Redstone, do you wish to ask any question of the officers now, please?
I do, Chair, if I may.
You may.
Can I address my questions to Mr. Wakefield? The first of my questions is this. In the local plan, 15.457, it says improved access and infrastructure is considered to be key to ensuring the site's sustainability and integration within the wider community. New access to the site off Parkgate Lane will be required, together with new access to Moberley Road. I can't see on the information that's been submitted in this report if that's actually happened. So could you confirm if it has, please?
Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Excuse me. I think the key point to note is that matters of access were approved at the outline stage back in 2015, so they're not addressed within this current submission because they were dealt with at the outline stage. And so access has already been approved, and so it's not something that we can look at any further at this point in time.
I'm not asking that question. I'm asking, can you confirm if it was looked at and if it has been, if this design does address those issues?
Well, as I say, the access was approved prior to the writing of the local plan, so it may not go as far as we would expect for a development that came forward after the writing of the local plan. But as I say, given that access was approved at the outline stage, which predated the local plan by 2 years, we can't insist at this point in time of any changes to that, because they're not seeking approval for it anymore because they've already got it. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, I see where you're coming from. It just seems bizarre that we've got a local plan and this application probably doesn't conform with that local plan.
You're quite right. In some respects, it doesn't. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. The other question which I wanted to ask you is regarding the layout along the border with Tatton Park. This is obviously covering up in many ways an eyesore. We've got an industrial factory next to a stately home and grade 2 star parkland. But I've not seen any drawings representing what it would look like from that side of the development. Have you got any?
Excuse me. In terms of street scenes, is that what you were seeing?
No, I'm talking about what does this, if you're looking at from the it's the north side of the site looking towards the factories, what will this development look like? I mean, we're talking about a major asset in Cheshire East's portfolio.
I think we're getting a bit confused here. Do you mean what it looks like from Tatton Park?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we've got areas of open countryside, we've got Greenbelt, part of the sites in the Greenbelt. None of these issues are really addressed in terms of we can't see what the final development is going to look like if we give permission for it.
Just Paul, I'm led to believe that it's partly covered by a wood that already exists, and then there's planting to the north side where the T2 tree is.
Yeah.
Is that where we're talking about, Patrick?
That's where we're talking about. Okay. Yes, where it says Parkgate Farm, it's that area there and then up. Yeah.
So that would be covered by the planting that the developer's putting in there, I think, would it, Paul?
It would indeed, yeah. And I mean, the key thing to point out is that, there is a fairly substantial plantation woodland within the Tatton Park boundary as well at the moment. And it's not an area that's publicly accessible at present. But I think some of the concern from the National Trust and the Gardens Trust is that, over the years, there's likely to be some thinning and managing of that particular area. And so they're concerned about, whether the works that they undertake in terms of thinning their own woodlands would then potentially open up views across to the application site. Now, as we've said, what we're proposing is that we are looking at securing additional planting between the developed area and the boundary of Tatton Park to minimise that impact. I mean, there is also, it's not like we've got a hard residential boundary right up against the boundary to Tatton Park. There is a good green belt buffer of probably, it's getting on for 60, 70, 80 meters in some locations. So it's quite a generous. It is quite a generous buffer. It is thinner in certain other areas, but again, with additional planting can be provided within those particular parts. But as I say, I'll come back to the point again that this development has been approved in principle.
Yes, I agree with you, but we are here to discuss the treatment, the landscape treatment, aren't we?
Oh, we are indeed, yeah. And I think
we have no view from which, from my point of view, is the most important viewpoint, which is from the park.
But like I said, that it's not a publicly accessible point of the park.
It doesn't matter. It's a grade 2 star listed building, and the parkland is also grade 2 star.
Yeah. I mean, as I say, there is additional planting proposed, so I guess it's just for members to consider.
You see, if I could also make another comment, which is across all these developments, we no longer have the right to go on site visits, so we have no view as to what this really looks like, what the topography of this site is. So we're relying on you as an officer in your report to tell us. And I don't see that your report tells us what that view is like. And I think it is very important, as it's part of our duty, really, to protect this asset for future generations.
Paul, can I just ask you, at Tatton Park, the National Trust, what representations have they made about that buffer zone?
Well, as I touched on before, they're just the concerns that they raise is just in terms of how potentially visible it would be in the future should, as and when they decide to thin their own woodland, and that's it. And I think that the holly hedge that's been provided, this evergreen holly hedge that has been provided along the boundary, has been provided by the applicant in direct response to the comments from the National Trust and the Gardens Trust, which the applicants met the Gardens Trust on site and sought to address their particular concerns, and the landscaping that we've currently got before us is part of that. And as we're saying now, we think we could go further still and soften that impact even further with additional tree planting. But that's the general concern, the outlook from the park, as and when they thin their own woodland.
Right. You see, I can quite understand what Councillor Redstone's saying, and this is one of the problems of the current situation that we find ourselves in. This is perfectly one of those applications where a site visit would have been really of great importance to us and would have added so much more to the understanding of how this particular development would work. But in saying that, the site as a buffer zone, it is my understanding that the National Trust are saying not objecting to that buffer zone. Is that right, Paul?
Can I make a further comment on what they're saying?
We can make. Can we have a question? Because
okay, my question is, in planning terms, is the presence of a wood which the applicant has got no control over relevant to this application as a means of screening?
Paul?
The wood forms part of the garden, so it's the impact on the wood as well. You can't, it's not, the wood isn't screening itself from the park because it's in the park, so.
No, but what the point is, and we've come across this before in applications, if the applicant, I've seen applications which were turned down by inspectors because they said that
Councillor Redstone, can we? I want to come back to this, but can we do it in the debate?
All right then. Thank you.
Is that okay? Because
yes,
I need to get through some
fine.
questions and then we'll open debate.
Okay.
So, can we now go to Councillor Hogben?
Right. Couple of questions on probable conditions for this. In the discussion about the green belt, there's reference pages 24 and 25, particularly at the top of page 25. It basically talks about fencing, and the report states it's considered that some of the fencing could easily be removed from the proposal through the submission of a revised plan, and if memory serves, going back about 2 hours now, I think a lot of the fencing has been removed. But it does then say, subject to the receipt of this plan, it's recommended that permitted development rights for fencing should be removed by condition. Mention was made very rapidly by yourself, Paul, about a fencing condition, and I'm assuming that's what it is, the removal of permitted development rights to ensure the continued if you like, open appearance of the site. The other question relates to open space. And again, it's been reported to us today, a lot of late changes that have come up really, which says that the more detailed proposals on public open space and the treatment of that are still under examination by ANSWER, so I'm assuming that those details have only been received since the new year. As it says, an adequately detailed specification for the public open space at that time hadn't been submitted as required by the section 106. The details were awaited and will be reported as an update. What I'd seek is that we're, if you like, assurance that that will be covered by the conditions if as necessary, because we don't know what the final appraisal is from ANSWER, do we, as the officer stated?
Paul?
So, issues.
You're right in both respects. The in terms of the fencing, as you say, I did refer to a restriction on additional fencing being erected, so that it would be the removal of permitted development rights for fencing across the site. And similarly with the open space, yes, we do. I think we've, as I tried to explain, I think we've got some of the details, but not all of them. So anything that is specific that is missing at this point in time would be picked up by the condition. by a condition. That's right. To ensure compliance.
And I take it that, and obviously, if necessary, suitably discussed by the head of planning with the chair and or vice chair. I think we need to be confident that these things are going to happen, because you covered a lot of ground in your in your verbal report, in your oral report, and you know, there's a lot to take on. There's quite a few. And when it comes to looking at the conditions, we need to be absolutely clear, in my opinion, what those conditions are going to be. Because at the moment there's about 10, but it might be a few more than that, which it'd be useful to run through those carefully when we get to that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ogden. That's fantastic. Right, now we've got Councillor Farrell. I know that we need to frame the question, but can we do that in, you know, as short as possible? Any detailed framing, can we bring that into the debate? So, Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair. Hello, Paul. Just a quick question about the, just going back to the design guide. Obviously, they very lately put in change to 4 one-bedroomed apartments, cottages. Can you mentioned that in your report, that going way back into your verbal report, that would take the design guide up to amber on that. Is that confirmed? Because it's not in the actual report and we've not had an update. So I just wanted to get confirmation that it does take it up to amber, because it does seem quite a negligible, you know, amount in comparison to the demand from the housing mix.
Right, Paul.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I mean, in officer's view, it would. I think the red was the one red in the Building for Life assessment was about meeting local housing requirements, and I think, I mean, at the time we didn't have these one-bed properties, and so I think any one-bed properties would make a contribution towards an identified need. So we have got 4. I understand members, you know, queries about, you know, asking whether or not any more could be provided, but I think from officers' point of view, and I suppose from the applicants, I expect as well, that the housing mix that's been put forward has been produced in quite it involved a lot of consultation with the local community groups and the town council, and as you can see from the report, they've not raised any objections to the housing mix that was put forward, even without the one-bed properties. The Knutsford the Knutsford neighbourhood plan talks about a preference for 2 and 3 bedroom properties, which, you know, we have got a good proportion of those being provided, and it's felt that the addition of one bedroom properties, albeit it is only 4, it's adequate to allow us to sort of bump it up, from a red to an amber in that part of the Building for Life assessment. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you very much, Paul. Councillor Farrell, do you wish a quick comeback, or is that, have you done? No, you've done, right. Thank you.
Done.
Thank you very much, Councillor Farrell. Councillor Jeffrey.
Thanks, Chair. That response kind of frames my. I've got 2 questions. Frames it quite well. Firstly, on the BFL 12 assessment, we had a lot of ambers and even some reds before the latest changes. Which did that come in yesterday? I saw the email. I'm just wondering, with those changes taken into account, where are we now? Because there was quite a big discrepancy between the applicant's assessment and the officer's assessment. So I'm wondering if we've got more greens now, and a ballpark figure of the proportions of greens and ambers, and hopefully no reds. And the second one is on the housing mix, which Paul's just been talking about. So the strategic site, one of the conditions is that it needs to be in accordance with policy SC5 affordable homes, and that policy requires it affordable homes must be of a 10-year size and type to help meet identified housing needs. Now, the officer's report says there's a housing need of a significant number of 1 bedrooms. So I just want confirmation, really, that we are in non-compliance with policy SC5 of KELPS, and Paul's thoughts on that. He's given some of it, to be fair. Thanks, Chair.
Paul, sorry, Paul, go on.
Sorry, let's go. In terms of the building for life assessment, I think, we certainly overcome the red. I think that's probably, I'm comfortable in saying that. Whether any of the ambers are elevated to greens, some of the, perhaps now, I'm probably not in a position to sort of confirm that, but I think it's important that we have regard to the site that we are actually looking at. I understand Councillor Redstone's comments focusing on Tatton Park, but if you turn 180 degrees, it's like chalk and cheese. You turn 180 degrees and you're suddenly looking at an industrial estate. So you've got quite an attractive boundary to the north, and then probably the worst type of boundary to the south. So it's also, it's a site that's also located below the flight path. So there are quite a number of constraints that the applicant has had to work with in terms of noise mitigation and site constraints, etc. So I suppose we are where we are in terms of the building for life assessment, and I think an overall score of of amber is probably where the site is. I don't think I think we would struggle to get a better design, if you like. In terms of affordable housing provision in compliance with SC5, I'm not sure I would say it conflicts with it by any means. I think we have a range of house types being provided now, and it does tick those boxes. That's as much as I'd say, really. I wouldn't identify it as conflict with that policy, though.
Right.
Chair, can I come back on that?
Councillor Jeffrey, yeah.
Because your report, Paul, says that current mix of affordable housing does not appear to where are we? So it's saying the demand for one-bedroom properties is 3 times what it was in May 2018, and that application at the time provided 31-bed apartments, and that met that requirement. And now we've got 3 times as many people wanting one-bedroom apartments, and we're providing, well, we're not providing any, are we, affordable housing in one beds, or are these new one beds affordable? If so, we're nowhere near meeting the demand for one bedrooms. So I can't see how we can be compliant with the policy where we should be meeting identified housing needs. You're on mute, Paul.
Paul, you're on mute.
Sorry, schoolboy error. So this development on its own isn't necessarily expected to meet the identified need. It is expected to contribute towards that need, and I think that need is spread out across a number of different house types and bedrooms and bedroom numbers. So I understand the concerns, and obviously that's a matter for the debate in terms of whether there is enough one-bed properties. But from officers' point of view, it does contribute towards meeting that need. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Count. Now, Councillor Jeffrey, thank you very much. Councillor Gardner, I believe you wish to open debate.
If that ends the questions, yes, I do. I see that Mr. Malcolm wishes to clarify a petition, a point before I begin.
I will just go over to Mr. Malcolm so he can give us this point of clarification. Mr. Malcolm.
Sorry, Chair. Thanks, members. It was just to pick up the point Councillor Hogben raised. I mean, as you've heard, there's been quite a lot of last-minute updates on this application, which is not something we'd normally do. But I think in terms of we've got all the answers that we wanted to largely. But I think it's just a point. Councillor Hogben was just wanted, I think, reassurance that there would be basically that assurance that the conditions would be forthcoming. And clearly, I suppose, if members still have some concerns over that, we could always change that recommendation for an approval to one where you delegate it back to the head of planning in discussion with the chair, which is obviously a sort of an intermediary position. So it's just to offer that as a bit of a carrot if members were still a little bit concerned about the volume of sort of perhaps some of those additional conditions. But I think I've worked quite closely with Paul. Some members will know this application for a long time, so we are aware of all the issues that have been raised, and because of the outline nature of what's been approved before, albeit quite some time ago, yeah, there are some sort of last-minute updates. But it is, this is pretty much in a position where we can seek to approve it now with those amendments we've got. I did just want to pick up in terms of the landscape issue that's been raised in terms of Tatton Park, and also just the issues over the sort of the site and lack of site visit. Yes, we would have normally done a site visit on this site because some members won't be familiar with the site. Others may well be familiar from the previous meetings. I think the point is, in terms of that was trying to be made, is that yes, there have been concerns raised about the impact on Tatton Park, and the scheme has been amended throughout the last sort of couple of years to reflect those. And I think what we're saying is that we still think we can get a little bit more landscaping to give us that buffer. But I say, if you did stand in Tatton Park and looked across in the winter, you would see the back of the Parkgate Industrial Estate. If you looked across from the sort of beyond where the woodland is, but there is a huge chunk of woodland in that area that even during the winter you'd probably struggle to see. So I think it was just to make the point where that is an area that's been looked at very closely in terms of the previous outline permission and also previous sort of iterations of this plan. So I hope that provides some comfort for members in terms of the condition point, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Much appreciated. Stuart, you're opening the debate if you wish to go.
Okay, before I open the debate, can I just seek clarification from one of the officers that the outline application is still live, given the date of its original, it's a 2013 number with a 2015 approval. In my understanding, that would be no longer valid. So can it be confirmed that there's been a variation to the appropriate condition to facilitate us now dealing with the reserved matters?
Paul?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it is still live, but there hasn't been any amendments to it. It's just the dates. The reserved matters came in within the timescale specified by the outline, but clearly there couldn't be any more reserved matters because they have now missed the timescale. So this is this is it.
Right. Does that help, Stuart?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So as members will be aware, this is my patch, and something's happening on the screen. I'm going to move my mouse before I keep seeing things coming up, so sorry about that. It's my patch. I am passionate about protecting the character of Knutsford, and I would not be supportive of anything that I felt was detrimental to the character of the town I live in and love. This proposal in its current form, I believe, ticks lots of boxes. I think you should begin by understanding that the people of Knutsford are very engaged in the planning process. That is why we had such an active volunteer organisation involved in the production of our neighbourhood plan, the plan that was granted an award by the Royal Town Planning Institute. You will note that there are no speakers today from the Town Council or any of the amenity groups speaking against this proposal or any of its elements. You will note that the applicant has been given support by the Town Council. This means that they support the application, not that they have no objections to it. So that's a very strong, and they don't give that word support freely to many applications. The issues relating to the relationship with Tatton Park are very important. I understand where Councillor Redstone is coming from, but the reality is this site has been allocated for development for over 20 years. Originally, it was to be an extension of the Hague Road Industrial Estate, which isn't the most attractive of locations. So we could have imagined there being some very large sheds built on this piece of land. Instead, we are presented with a scheme of quite attractive houses using streets with corners and very few cul-de-sacs, which actually reflects the character of this part of Knutsford. For those of you who don't know, Knutsford is effectively two settlements. It's the town area and it's Over Knutsford, and we are in Over Knutsford for this site. Over Knutsford predominantly has developed post late Victorian period. There are Victorian properties on the Mobberley Road, the main road through this part of town. But a lot of the other developments are in estates of red brick, two-storey, semi-detached, some terraced housing, some flats, cottage type style flats, two-storey where you've got an up and down, but it looks like a house from the outside. So the characters of the houses being proposed today very much reflect what is there if you avoid the 1970s and early 60s developments that filled in the gaps and dealt with the periphery. I think it's important to note that this site is not ideal in terms of its locus. There's one road in and one road out, but it benefits from being allocated for development several, as I said, 20 odd years ago, and so therefore that ship has sailed. We are going to have to accept that it will be a site that is it's almost down a cul-de-sac to get it, despite the internal layout that the developers have come up with. That aside, it means that it's not easily accessible to either the town centre or the transport network, the public transport network. It's some distance from the bus station. It's a good 2 kilometres to walk to the railway station, and unless you want to go with your waders through some muddy marshland between the town and there, you're not going to go that way to the railway station or into town. Therefore, and this is a really important point for Councillor Jeffrey and concern about the one-bedroom units, this site is not actually a very good site for one-bedroom properties. And as somebody who was involved in collating the data for the neighbourhood plan, I can assure you that the demand for one-bedroom units comes from two cohorts. It comes from older people wanting to downsize, and it comes from young professionals who perhaps live in Manchester but want to stay living in Knutsford. The second cohort would obviously wish to be located relatively near to the railway station, because that's how they can get into Manchester. And actually, it's probably equidistant, this site, between the Knutsford station and the Mobberley station, but both ways you'd be walking through countryside or over some unmade roads or going a very long way round. For the second cohort, the older people will want to be where all the facilities are. And with the exception of a parade of shops and a part of the existing doctor's surgery, which are on this part of town, it isn't well served with facilities apart from a very good primary school. So therefore, locating one-bedroom properties here would actually present other planning problems. In addition, we need to recognise that this is one of 4 sites that have been identified in the local plan for future development. The other sites are on the other side of town, much nearer to the centre. And also, in addition to those sites, recent permission has been granted, and I understand construction should be beginning sometime later this year, for a McCarthy and Stone development of apartments, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, specifically for older people, which will be just on the edge of the town centre. And that's where those 1-bedroom units should be provided. And so I hope that that has overcome the concerns of some. I might sound like I'm speaking on behalf of the developer. I'm not. I'm just very impressed with what I've been presented with. Okay, maybe it's not the high-end architectural styles that we were looking for on the Northwich Road site, which I pushed for so long. But that, we remember, is a gateway site where I expected there to be bespoke architecture reflecting the character of the town. This is a site that will only be seen by those people who actually go to the site. It will not be clearly visible from the main thoroughfares coming into Knutsford, or even the minor thoroughfares within Knutsford, because unless you're going, you would only go down Parkgate Lane to go down Parkgate Lane unless you're lost, or because you've got to go to the post office to pick up a parcel. So that is the character. I'm really pleased with what I've been presented with. Didn't go to the town council meeting, as I said at the beginning of this meeting. Had I been there, I would have voted for the proposal. But I will listen to the debate to see what my colleagues have to say before I speak any further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Redstone. Yeah, I've got Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Chair. I also am impressed with this development. It's got a lot of things going for it. And one of those is it covers up a horrible eyesore behind it from the direction of Tatton Park. And I would be minded to support this application if the landscaping condition was beefed up, which I think officers are prepared to do. So that my concern is that the woodland behind that is presently masking it from Tatton is managed woodland, and as the trust has said, that will be thinned. It will also some point be felled and replanted, so there will be many years when this whole site will be exposed. So if the planting along its boundary can be beefed up so that that view is protected in the future, I'd be more than happy to support this. In fact, I'd be prepared to second it if this proposal, if Councillor Gardner was prepared to propose that it was. So I'll listen to the rest of the debate. Thank you.
Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Chairman. I am the third of the three members who represent the Knutsford ward between us. I'm probably the only one who isn't a member of the town council. I also actually, on balance, I support this application. What I would say, and I'm glad that Mr. Malcolm is attending this meeting, when I first read these papers, I thought this was heading for deferral, because there was at least 11 or 12 items still to be finalised, and poor old Mr. Wakefield had to then spend about 3/4 of an hour filling us in on 10 items, starting with the fencing being removed, the number of dwellings being changed, and finalising with the floor level issue at the beginning, which is information we should have had with the pack of documents. So I'm effectively making a complaint that we don't really, I don't think we should be getting these applications coming to a committee when they're so unfinished in future. Now, I know this might be an issue between our planners and the applicants, but whatever the problem is, it wasn't good. Having said that, a bit like the Brexit deal, at the 59th minute of the 11th hour, Mr. Wakefield gave us the missing information at the beginning of the meeting verbally. And everything in planning is a balance. A bit like Councillor Jeffrey, I'm not particularly happy about the only 4 single bedroom apartments. Councillor Gardner has explained a little bit about why that might not be as bad as it looks. But on balance, I think there is so much good in this application that I would certainly be interested in approving it, and I don't want to take Councillor Gardner's ground. I'll let him propose it, but I'm certainly in favour of it.
Councillor Edgar.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm much in I was concerned about the things that have been mentioned within the debate about things that haven't happened. But now, after Councillor Gardner put forward his eloquent reasons for supporting the application, I would like to move to approve it, with the additional conditions, as noted earlier, on the tree protection, the impact assessment, fences, open spaces, sports pitch, drainage, and the one-bedroom properties with the extra trees and biodiversity to be sorted out with officers afterwards.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edgar. So we do have a proposer. We will now go to Councillor Jeffrey.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, pretty much of what I was going to say has been said by Councillor Dean. Really, when I was looking at this application, I actually wrote on my notes: is this a joke or some kind of test for us? Because there seemed to be so much wrong with it. But a lot of my concerns have been addressed by the late submissions, and my principal concern with the one-bedroom or lack thereof has been very well addressed by Stuart. So yeah, I'm found myself in an unexpected position where I'm happy to support it. Okay, thanks, Chair.
I'm just going to bring Mr. Malcolm in to clarify a position which was brought forward before. So, David, can you just clarify on the? I think it's about bringing in stuff at the last minute. I think, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I was trying to allude to that before, Chairman. I mean, apologies to all members. Really, it's not something that we want to do. I think the difficulties at the moment, as you'll probably find, as you'll be establishing yourselves a little bit, is that we are struggling to sort of get some of the consultation responses back in due time, and unfortunately we are still suffering from even the very first lockdown that we're in, and now we find ourselves in a third one. So I think that we are in sort of slightly unusual times, and I think actually I'm reassured slightly that members are taking this in hopefully the spirit that it was meant, in terms of the report was always going to be something that we could support, but there were just a number of as you've seen, a number of relatively minor points, albeit they were still significant enough that would cause us a problem. And everybody, including the applicants, to be fair, in this instance, have managed to really work to achieve and recognise those concerns and pull out last-minute revisions. So I think it's a slightly unusual time that we're in. And as I say, I am happy if members, rather than going for straight approval, if there seems to be some support to do that, in which case I'm happy to let it continue. And we've clearly got those conditions that Paul can quickly run through again, just to reassure members if need be. But again, if members wish to, we can change that to delegation back to myself and the chair. And all that would do is just, when we finally get the details of the final wording of conditions, and if there's any outstanding matters, I mean, let's talk about additional elevations that I'm not sure some of us have actually quite seen yet, then we can just sign that off as well through that process. So just to perhaps give members a bit of assurance about the way we're dealing with this thing, but also perhaps thank you as well, members, for perhaps recognising that this scheme isn't that far away, and that with those tweaks that have come forward over the last sort of week or so, we are able to now, as we expected, have a scheme that we can support. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Malcolm. Councillor Williams.
Yes, I won't say a great deal, but what I will say is I think something I said last time we had a Knutsford proposal in front of us. I'm always very impressed, as Councillor Gardner said. I can understand why the planning procedures there have won awards, etc. And I'm always impressed at the level of detail. And I think from both the town and the residents and the officers and the applicant, I think there's clearly been an awful lot of work gone in on this. I do echo some of the concerns about things being presented sort of at half cock, as it were, but I can understand the reasons for that. And I think those things have largely been clarified. I do welcome what David Malcolm said about looking at some of the additional detail and extra conditions, and I'm happy for that to be delegated too. But I would certainly second Councillor Edgar's proposal to approve.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williams, much appreciated. What we will do firstly, before I go to, because we have a first and a seconder, and before I go to any sort of vote, can I just ask Paul to just go over the conditions to go into the mover and seconders, what they've put forward?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So there are the conditions that are listed on page 43. There are 10 conditions there. Condition 4 being landscaping, and of course that will include additional planting to that northern buffer. And then in addition to those 10, they were specific tree protection and management plan for the veteran tree, tree T1. The development needs to be carried out in accordance with the arboricultural impact assessment, method statement and tree protection plan. No additional fences to be erected. Open space, play area and trim trail layout details to be submitted. Sports pitch details to be submitted. Finished floor levels to be agreed and aligned with the drainage details, and plans and elevations of the one-bed properties to be submitted as well. And that's it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Paul. Now, just one final question. Is this to a straight approval, or are we delegating back between officers and chair?
Delegating us back to officers and chair, please, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edgar. And you were happy with all the conditions that were listed?
I am, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick one. The was the biodiversity mentioned?
Paul?
Excuse me. No, it wasn't. The majority of it was covered as part of the outline and is subject to conditions that are on the outline and will require discharge through that outline permission as opposed to the reserve matters.
Happy with that, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Williams, you're happy with all those conditions that were set out by Paul?
Yep, certainly very happy with that.
Thank you very much. So we're all agreed on the on what we're voting on. So I will now go to the vote. It's all right. I've got a line through Councillor Critchley on my paper, and I'm wondering why, but it was because he was late, expected to be late, so that's okay. So we have a mover and seconder. I am going to ask you to vote for, recommendations, against, or not voting. Our first councillor is Councillor Critchley.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Dean.
For, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Edgar.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Farrell.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
For.
Councillor Hogburn.
For.
Councillor Jeffrey.
For.
Councillor Morton. Councillor Morton. I think you're on mute, Councillor Morton. I'll go back to Councillor Morton in a second. Councillor Redstone.
For.
Councillor Wetherill.
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
I'm for as well. Sarah?
Can we just check Councillor Morton again,
Yeah.
Chairman?
I'm going to go back to Councillor Morton. Councillor Morton? Can you hear us, Councillor Morton?
We just have to didn't vote. But it's carried, Chairman.
Yeah, the motion is carried, so we'll just put Councillor Morton down as not voting, and then we'll try and find out what's happening. Can we get a text or something off to Councillor Morton? Right,
thank you. You know, you've
oh, right, okay. Sorry, Rob. Councillor
for.
For. Thank you very much.
I don't know what happened. It just went off. The noise did.
Yeah, It's all power for the cause today with technical issues, I'm afraid. Right, I'll now move. So that was carried unanimously. We will now move to item number 6, which is 20/0113M, a hybrid application comprising of full planning permission for the development of the upper quarry, including improvements to site access, the erection of 8 industrial storage units, proposed landscaping, ecological mitigation works, outline planning permission for development of the lower quarry to provide up to 13 of additional units at Hawkshead Quarry, Leek Road, Sutton, Cheshire for AM Bell Properties Limited. I will now ask Mr. Paul Wakefield to present this item, and let's hope we get further and right the way through this one. Paul.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one thing to update right before I get onto the presentation. There is reference in the report to further comments being awaited from the lead local flood authority, on page 64. However, given that their concerns related to the layout on the lower site, which is a reserve matter, the relationship of the buildings to the watercourse that the LLFA raised concern about can be dealt with at the reserve matter stage, so no further comments are required from them. I'll just share my screen.
Yeah, we've got that, Paul.
Right. Sorry, just bear with me. Okay, so this is, excuse me, the site known as Hawkshead Quarry. Two sites, if you like, with it being a hybrid application. So we have the lower quarry, which is the area on the left-hand side of the image here, which is an outline application with access only for consideration. And this seeks outline permission for the development of up to 13 additional employment units. And then the upper quarry is the site which is on the right-hand side, and that as part within that site, full planning permission is sought to erect 8 industrial starter units with landscaping and ecological mitigation works. So, excuse me. So as you can see, this is the site. It's located within the open countryside. The lower quarry does have a number of buildings on it at the moment, as we'll come to within the photographs, which is this area here. But as you can see, it's quite well surrounded by vegetation and planting. And then the upper quarry, which is this area here, is relatively open, but it is currently used as parking of trailers and things there at the moment. This A523 is the main road out from Macclesfield leading out towards Leek. And access from is taken from this main road up Radcliffe Road towards the lower quarry here, and then access to the upper quarry is taken from Croker Lane, which is just shown at the top of the page and just goes off, but does go down to meet a Leek Old Road just further off the top there. So this is just to show the site in its wider context of nearby settlements. So the application site is broadly located where we've got the red balloon, and then we've got Sutton over here on the top right, Lime Green and Macclesfield directly to the north, and then Goresworth over on the western side. Sorry. Few photographs now. So this is the access to the upper quarry site. Access driveway. Again, you can just see the trees and the sort of nature of the site there. Then within the site, there is this kind of hard standing area that does have this sort of scrub stuff that's grown on it as well. But as you can see, it's quite a well surrounded site by vegetation. And then again, upper quarry facing northeast back towards the access, which is up between these trees here. And then a view into the site from the east. Again, still on the upper quarry. There's quite a difference in character between the upper and the lower quarry, as we'll come on to now. So this is the access or the entrance to the lower quarry, where there are existing employment uses taking place. The property just that's elevated above is Hawkshead House, I think it's called, which is owned by the applicant. Then looking at the lower quarry, the sort of lower area facing southeast, which shows the northwest elevations of existing buildings within the site. As you can see, it's quite an established area of hard standing buildings as well. And then again, facing northwest, with the upper quarry just in the distance. There is no, just so members are aware, there's no direct link, no route through between the two sites, given the changes in land levels that there are. And then again, lower quarry, but the upper area facing south east. And then these buildings are located sort of midway, if you like, between the upper and the lower quarries. You can see how the land just sort of starts to rise up there. But these are the nature of the buildings that currently exist on the site. So the existing site plan, as we can see, this is the lower quarry on the left hand side. Existing access, excuse me, and you know the majority of the buildings are located away from the entrance, with parking occupying the majority of the other areas on the lower site, and then the upper site. You can see those trailers shown as being parked within that upper site as well, and the access that leads through to Croker Lane on the far right hand side of the image. So the proposed site plan, so the upper quarry is, as we said, is a full application for the 8 units, and then the lower quarry is outlined for up to 13. Access, again, upper quarry still from Croker Lane, and then the buildings are sort of provided in a courtyard formation around a turning area, a centrally positioned turning area, with a couple of units on the right hand side as well. The local wildlife site that does border the site does sort of skirt around the site around this area here at the top of the page. And then at the lower quarry, as you can see, these buildings just shown indicatively, though, although the larger ones that we've got centrally positioned and over on this far side are existing. But you can just see they're outlined. The proposed ones are outlined in colours. So we've got the blue outline here, the pink there, and then along here as well, and also just there to the top, close to the existing access. Then, excuse me, these are within your key plans, members, so I'm sure you've seen them before, but just as a reminder, just to demonstrate the type of buildings that we're looking at, fairly typical in employment buildings, industrial buildings that are present on the lower site at the moment as well. Similar sort of approach, utilitarian appearance. And then again, lower quarry, pretty standard stuff. This again, utilitarian appearance. But as just to note that these are indicative only, with it just being access that's being proposed as part of the outline application on the lower quarry site. And as is set out in the report, Chairman, the application is recommended for refusal by officers, but is before members of the Strategic Planning Board due to members of the Northern Planning Committee resolving to approve it. So as that departure from policy that's set out in the report, it's over to members to consider the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Paul. Have you got it? Brilliant. Right, so We can now move over to, where's my speakers list? Got it. So we can now move over to our speakers. The first speaker will be Councillor Gregory, ward member. Councillor Gregory, you have 5 minutes to address the board.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to all members. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my representations. So I'm the ward councillor for Sutton, and I'm in support of this application, as are the Sutton Parish Council. Members might be wondering why an application for development of further industrial use in a rural location will be supported by myself and the council. The key reasons for that is because this application, we believe, will improve the locality, both the immediate site, and provide support in terms of jobs and creation of further opportunities to work within this site, which will move it forward. The applicant has approached this application in a strategic way. Mr. Wakefield's referred to the upper and lower quarries. The reality is, as you've seen from the plans, it's all one site. What the applicant is seeking to do is to develop the site in a way which looks to the future. Presently, the site is primarily used for the servicing of heavy goods vehicles. So an issue of concern for the parish council has been the frequency of heavy goods vehicles moving off from the main road up through the country lanes and in the vicinity. The plans for the applicant are to reduce this activity, move away from this, and move to a much more modern approach of light industrial units, a modern approach which will attract local businesses and create an opportunity for innovation and development. And my goodness, members, don't we need this now, given the current situation with the pandemic? So the applicant is moving forward with this site in a way which will provide jobs, wealth creation. The site at any one time, which has been in the ownership of the applicant's family since the 1970s, will continue, but will be developed in a way which creates much less, as I've said, reliance on the heavier and noisy and pollution making of heavy goods vehicles and lighter industries. There is a lot of interest in the site already from potential tenants. Before we finish, I'll give you some names of those. But in broadly speaking, this is seen as an application which will move the site into forward for decades to come in a good way and a sensitive way. As with the last application, it's unfortunate that members have not been able to visit the site itself, because I think if you'd seen the site, you'd recognise there's an opportunity to convert a scruffy piece of land, which you saw on the photographs from Mr. Wakefield in terms of the upper Quarry. That was the photograph of the number of trailers parked, and develop that site. A site, incidentally, which is quite well hidden from Croker Lane, so none likely to create, in my view, any particular visual impact either on the local geography of the area. So there's lots going for this application. Lots of interested new potential businesses that can come into the site. I've got names of businesses such as Cheshire Cheese, which are there already. They want to take another unit and develop it. Harvey Bell Pension Investments are interested in the two adjoining units. Britannia Security and Maintenance, which to move their operations there from the West Pennines. And we have Associated Steel Products, a business that is jointly partly owned by the applicant's business partner, and AM Bell Properties Limited.